Okay, so we've got the Delron pieces done, and everything slides nice and smoothly. Of course, we can't attach the Delron to the bracket without having a metal frame around it. So we've cut a couple of small pieces of what is this, 1/2 inch angle, and if we take that, we'll notice that there's just a little bit too much room there. Now we can do one of two things. We can either fill it in or we can trim it off, and I'm at the point now to where filling it in might be a good idea. Just put a piece of metal in to fill that gap between there, and then weld everything together, and then we have a nice frame to attach to the arm that comes out into space. So I'm going to play with that a little bit. Maybe we'll just cut a piece of metal, and that might be enough. Let's take a little time. Okay, so we went the spacer direction. So take that. We'll put ourselves another spacer there. Whoops, let's use a spacer that's already been dealt with. And we've got too much space there, so then we come in and slide this little piece of material in right here, and we've got just about the right amount of space to throw a quick weld right in there, and we've got our slider. So that's pretty good. I think what we need to do now is go ahead and go over to the welder and put these things together. Got everything all buttoned up here. It's all squared off on the ends. All we need to do is do a couple of quick tacks and then drop this in the water real fast so that it doesn't melt the Delron. Now, in case, I cut a couple of extra pieces of Delron just so I didn't wreck this nice slider. So I think we're ready to go ahead and take this to the next step. Okay, we've got our basic frame set up, just tacked together, and that should work out just pretty good. The Delron slides right in, maybe with just a little bit of adjustment, but yeah, there it goes. It slides right in, nice and snug, which is what we want. So now all we need to do is come back in and tighten up all of our welds. Good. That looks pretty good. And that's enough weld to get this thing all way going. And our Delron's we got to come in and file out a little bit and mess around with it just a little bit to get everything to go back in. But it fits, and it's going to be nice and tight, and we're going to get a good slide with that. So we've got the thing welded together. Now we just need to come back in and notice all the weld marks and everything. We just want to kind of square that up and make it look nice again, because that's going to be the part that shows. So we just throw it on our bumping head. Round off our corners so nobody cuts themselves. And we got our pieces back together. You can see it spread a little bit, but I think we're going to be okay. I need to come in on the inside, get rid of all the little dingle balls, and notice how there's a little weld right there. We need to get rid of that so that the Delron can slide in there. Let's see if we can get a good slide anyhow. Now we need to play with it a little bit. So, well, that's not a problem. We'll just get that going in there. Same with this one. Then once these are set up, they go on the rod here. They go on the piece here. They slide, well, they don't slide, they stay in place. This slides back and forth. And so the next part of this process is we need to build, for one, a mount for the motor. The motor is going to mount this way, and with some holes to attach to whatever he's working with. And then coming off of that mount, two arms that will connect directly to these two pieces here. So the arms will come up and probably just weld to it. I'm looking at, probably a piece of 1-inch angle iron or something like that. So then we've got these out here at so many inches coming in to connect up. So we'll get on to that next step at some point in the near future. We're going to take a break right now. Well, we got this far, and it works, but it makes a hell of a lot of noise. And look at this motor. That's all the motor doing that action there. It's not going to work, or at least not for any distance. So, back to the drawing board. Now he did bring me, just a couple hours ago, he brought me an old windshield wiper motor that seems like it works pretty well. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and replace this motor in the bracket with this motor here. So we got to set this up somehow so it's gonna work. We'll be back. Okay, we got this whole thing apart now, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it looks to me like there's a taper here and then a set of threads. And so I think what we're going to do is just go ahead and use what we've got and just bore that out and thread it, and then come back in later and do a slight taper in the beginning part of the hole. So I think that's going to work out pretty well. So we'll go back to the lathe. We'll go ahead and set up our threading and our taper, and we'll see you over there. Okay, so we're going to bore our hole and then thread it. Pretty simple. We've already got a hole in there, so that's not going to be a problem. We drilled it at 7/64, and then we're going to come back in with a metric tap and run it in there. Okay, not 7/64, 17/64, but you know, who's counting? Put our tap in, snug that down, and then I like to slow things down a little bit. And then leave the tailstock loose and just let it feed its way in. When it feels like it's binding, just go the opposite direction a little bit. There we go. Of course, now we loosen the nut up, but that's all right. Yeah, we're about halfway in, so all we need to do is tighten that nut back up and go ahead and run it in by hand. There we go. All the way down. Okay, so we've got a good thread in there. Now we'll come in, and I think what we're going to do is come in from the other side at this point, because we're a little bit thin on the thread to perimeter calculation there. So if we come in on this side, we'll get that same threading and then put that small taper in. So let's go back to the lathe. Okay, we're sitting at about 10 degrees on our not our cross side, but our compound. And I think we're going to cut this at 10. So we'll just kind of come in and start our cut very carefully, because that's a fairly thin boring tip. And I'm not thinking we have to do too much of a taper here. Maybe another 5/1000ths or so. So we're trying to follow this taper here, and I was only able to guess because there's just not enough room to get anything in there to do that. And we've set it up and cut the taper with you guys watching, but the battery went dead, so we missed that part. We're going to slide this on, and we're going to thread it in and bring it down until that taper hits. See what happens. You know, it's not really catching the taper too much, but it is good and solid, and I don't think it's going anywhere. So I think I'm just going to roll with that. And we will have succeeded in transferring the unit over onto the disc. So now we go ahead, and I think what we're going to have to do is build a frame so that this can mount on the larger frame. And we'll get started with that in a second. Okay, so now we need to build the frame for this, and he wants it to be 34 inches long and 9 1/4 wide. So we're going to bring this in just a little bit. And I think we're sitting right at 9 3/4 or 9 1/4. And 9 1/2. I think I can live with that. So the other thing we want is to make sure we've got 9 1/2 back here, and we do. Everybody's happy. Yep. And I need to square this up a little bit, so it looks like we're going to be just a bit short over there, but we can fill that in with weld. That looks pretty good. Well, let's see. We can't get our ground hooked up here. There we go. Okay, we've got 4 sides connected. Let's go ahead and flip it over very carefully, of course. And the other side, just to make sure we've got just to make sure we've got it locked in. Now you can see this side's got a few gaps in it. Okay, now let's get it up on the table where we can actually weld it without having to bend way over. We'll be back.